Hello and welcome back to another Refuge recap. This week we continued our series in Esther, and we're going to be talking about this biblical times bachelor show this week and how the king took over 400 women into the palace to compete in what we call the biblical time bachelor show. See, so part of this is Esther and Mordecai, who were finally introduced to the two Jewish people who were in Persia because of exile. And during this chapter and during this series, or during this specific part, there's just so many different things that happen and so many different things that we personally can take away as well. Basically, though, to be in this bachelor show, you have to really think about it. You know, the women are all going on their first dates, if you think about it, because most of these girls were teenagers. So, ladies, think for a moment. Imagine the amount of time you take to get ready right now. And there's 400 women in this place waiting for their date with the king. I imagine you got to make sure your hair looks good. You got to make sure you smell good. You got to make sure your breath smells good. You got to make sure that the outfit that you're picking out is the best one that you have. You got to make sure your hygiene is great. And then, you know, as you're leaving to go on a date, you got to spray the extra 1 or 2 sprays of perfume on to ensure that it's all good and go and that you're ready to go, you know. And that's how it goes sometimes for us, you know. And I believe even back then, it was probably the same exact thing. And see, something crazy to see is back during this time, women, before they went to see the king in this bachelor story, they actually had to complete a whole 12-month beauty treatment before being allowed to see the king. So you think you really take long to get ready? Imagine being one of these women. Imagine. So through all of this, when Esther is taken to the palace, she's put with a man named Haggai, and immediately she wins favor with him. She wins the favor with him because of her beauty, not just on the outside, but on the inside as well. And Haggai immediately was able to tell there's something different with Esther than the rest of these women. See, because understand, inner beauty and character are as important as outer appearance. Esther's favor with Haggai wasn't solely based on her looks, but her inner qualities. And as Christians, we should cultivate a character that reflects Christ's love, drawing others to us and ultimately to him. And through this, Esther ends up being the one picked in this huge bachelor biblical show that we see. She gets the rose. And now the story has a lot to offer here as we reflect upon this entire chapter when we look at it. You know, we talk a lot about this whole entire story of Esther, and as we're walking through this, we can see God's fingerprints are all over this thing. And something we have to understand here is while we are in the midst of the story of Esther, we are also in the middle of our story, which is nowhere close to being over. And with Esther as an example to this, we are in the middle of a story that's still being written. Your story, my story, our story is nowhere close to being done. And we see Esther, and we immediately can tell this king is obviously selfish. He's a wicked man, not only because of what happened in the previous chapter of getting rid of the previous queen, and also because he literally took 400 women into the palace to make this bachelor show happen. But see, Esther knew that becoming queen was just the beginning of her story. She had no idea what was to come, but she knew God's fingerprints were somewhere in this thing. And see, God is the author of our story, and knowing him changes everything. We may not know how our story is going to unfold, but God's going to give us confidence. He's going to give us hope. Now see, let's go to the end of this chapter, because the end of this chapter ends a little bit on a different note. It's very weird and random. So behind the scenes, while this is all happening, there's actually a plot that happens to kill the king that is put into place. And Mordecai overhears this plot. He tells Esther. Esther then tells the king, giving credit to Mordecai. And then because of this, the men are behind the plot are killed, and they're sent to the gallows. And we look at this, it's like, this is super random, and it's a bit different from what's going on. But this part of the story is also a crucial part to a later part of the story. So why would something like this just randomly be thrown in there? Well, once again, I believe this is just one of those areas that we see God's fingerprints really coming in. Because get this. The unnoticed acts of bravery and kindness like Mordecai's in here when he discovers the plot, they're often part of a larger divine plan. And we may not see immediate rewards for our good deeds, but God sees them and weaves them into his purposeful design for our lives and the lives of others. So basically to say, there's something larger happening in this story behind the scenes, and it's only just beginning. And your story as well is just beginning. Think about that this week.